I would like to welcome everyone to the second edition of the FEDERATE webinar series. After the strong interest in the first webinar, we are very glad to see that also today we are joined by, we can see a strong interest and have a number of participants. Today, we have Peter Prüller presenting the vision and roadmap of the Software-Defined Vehicle of the Future initiative. Peter is a principal technology scout at AVL in Graz, Austria, and he's a member of the FEDERATE coordination team. And if you haven't heard about FEDERATE or about SDV or SDVOF, then you will hear all about it in the next about 22, 23 minutes. And then we will also have a couple of minutes for your questions. Feel free to already put them into the chat during the presentation. And with that, I can hand it over to you, Peter, and we're ready to hear all about the vision and roadmap.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, and thank you everyone for joining. So as Benjamin said, this is the second webinar, and let's dive right into so what will be today's outline. We will talk briefly about the European Software-Defined Vehicle of the Future initiative and what it is, and then we'll more focus on the main topic on the vision, which is the European SDV vision. And a part of it is also the roadmap, the very first roadmap, which covers this time period until 2030. As Benjamin mentioned, we will also talk a little bit about what FEDERATE is, the CSA, the coordination and support action of this initiative. And I hope I got you interested, and I hope you will then ask, how can I join that? How can I connect? Which we will answer at the end, and we will have hopefully enough time for any other questions to answer. All right, so what is the European Software-Defined Vehicle of the Future initiative? And with that, I would like to point out that there's the first webinar has a focus on that. This webinar was recorded in November last year and was presented by my colleague Michael Paulweber, and pretty much touches on what is a SDV, what is this initiative about, and makes a very good overview of that. We will still summarize it today. Another source of information I would like to point out is the website, the official website of the EC, the Digital Strategy website, which explains what the Vehicle of the Future initiative is about. The Vehicle of the Future initiatives covers both the software and the hardware part of the initiative. Yes, so you can go there and find the information from the EC directly. All right, so let's have a look at it. And it's built like a house. And let's start on the left side. You are most likely aware of this big push in Europe towards gaining competence, gaining market share in the chips production, right? So on the very left side, as you can see, a lot of push, a lot of activities in this initiative to raise up the chip production capacity. With that come two big pillars in that part, in the Vehicle of the Future initiative. One is about the hardware platform, which focuses on the automotive hardware. Here you see the word RISC-V, so a big part is also driven by this open hardware architecture, RISC-V. A big part, not all of that. So that's the hardware part, and we will just mention that, but today's talk will focus on this right pillar, which is the Software-Defined Vehicle of the Future pillar. So the software is tightly connected with these initiatives. Together, the hardware and the software form this European Vehicle of the Future initiative. And look at this, I think, impressive number, 250 million euros investment just the last 2 years, 2023 and 2024, by the EU, by the member states, and by the industry jointly. Right, so a big part is done via the CHIPS JU program of the EU, but we are also aligned with other research programs under the Horizon Europe umbrella, like the CCAM and the 2.0. We will mention that a little bit later. So with this software-defined vehicle of the future being a big pillar in this whole strategy, there is, of course, an interesting question. So what is it about? And there's this vision paper, which was published about a year ago, This is the main focus of today's talk. We will show you where to find it, and we will highlight a few things which you can find in this vision, what it defines. And part of this vision paper is also this roadmap, which focuses now mostly in this first iteration on the research programs which are connected to this vision and which will be extended furthermore. I would also like to point out that this has the backhold, the foundation, and the big push and the support by the European automotive industry. There was a manifesto signed from the big players in the automotive industry, from individual companies as well as from associations. As you can see, the French association PFA, the German association VDA, the Italian association ANFIA, which show that this has really the support of the automotive industry, meaning this is really what Europe needs in that industry. Okay, so what is this software-defined vehicle of the future initiative? And let's see on the right side those three hexagons. Let's start on the bottom. So of course it needs to run on hardware, meaning CPU, meaning processing, meaning AI-enabled hardware, and so on. Here it's mostly the focus on the high-performance computing platform on this set. A lot of that is being done in the RISC-V, from the RISC-V architecture. This is the hardware initiative. We will focus now on the middle part, on the STVOF software platform. And these green bars in the middle indicate some software layers which are partly running, executed in the vehicle as well as in the cloud above. So this needs to go together, right? And the main idea is that this is something which is in the middle of the software stack, because we also have an application stack. This is what we call the non-differentiating part of software. What is meant by that? This means that this is software, these are functionalities which more or less every car needs, but which is not so much visible towards the user. So it's needed, but it's not visible. And this is exactly the perfect spot for collaboration. This is something which we shall and can do together in the automotive industry in order to have a very robust foundation for what is on top here, which is what is differentiating. This is where the competition happens. This is where the brands differentiate, which is the functionality which really excites the user, a buyer of vehicles, the software applications part. So if we draw this like this software-defined vehicle of the future initiatives focus on this middle part, on this non-differentiating part of software. It is extended with an ecosystem which is needed to create this software. And it is also extended with an engineering platform which provides the tools, the methods to do that. And we have we think that AI is the way to move forward to really gain in productivity, gain in speed in that aspect. All right, so let's have a look a little bit deeper and let's see where to find this SDV vision. One of the places you can go is the FEDERATE website, and we will come to that again a little bit later. If you type into the address bar of your favorite browser, federate-sdv.eu, you will see this page, and the European Software-Defined Vehicle of the Future Initiative Vision and Roadmap is on the very top. Learn more, and you will get to the document, which looks like that. It was published on April 12th last year, so it's roughly a year old now, and it defines a lot of things which we want to address in this initiative. Now let's have a look a little bit more technical, more structural. Let's see where this initiative aims, and I've mentioned already those non-differentiating part of a software stack. Let's see where they are. On the very left side, you see this very abstract layers which represent an SDV. It starts with a hardware platform. Then there is this software platform, this middleware, so to say. Then there is the layer with the applications, and across all of it, there is this need for engineering, automation, tools, and tool chains. And with that, let's see, you see two pillars. The one in the middle is the SDV vehicle. So this is, by this we mean software running in the vehicle, executing in the vehicle, performing in the vehicle. On the right side, you see the counterpart in the cloud. And this is more and more something which always has to go together. So again, in the vehicle, there is of course hardware, and depending on the architecture, on the EE architecture, there's some kind of centralized hardware, zonal hardware, high performance computing part, which runs. And now let's go to these two olive parts: the hardware abstraction layer, the 2A layer, and the 2B layer, which is this middleware framework, which has this general functionalities and this base where the applications run upon. Some of these functional domains in this car could be automated driving and the driving assistance systems, some control for chassis, for powertrain, infotainment, any other services which can be consumed in the car, body comfort, and more. And this is extended, as said, by software which cooperates in the cloud to provide those services. Okay, so again, the ecosystem focuses on this middle part and on this middle part, which is something we all need, and we shall work together on it. If you go into the main content in the table of contents, you will see a short description of what the SDV really means, what the SDV is supposed to bring, and what are the challenges. And we have this, we see that from the European point of view, where these main challenges are, and how this industry and EC uptakes can address that. Right, so towards this common ecosystem, focusing on a jointly developed middleware, how can this work? And in this next part, you will see some of the guiding principles which will be used, which will be applied in this build-up. You will see in this paper, in this vision paper, also the impact, some example use cases, for example, some reference stacks, some first steps towards a common language, so towards some kind of a glossary, and the roadmap, which we will visit soon. So what are the guiding principles to those initiatives? So as mentioned before, the idea is really to have this collaborative development of open, non-differentiating building blocks. With building blocks, we mostly mean software components. And this is being done collaboratively, so we form an ecosystem. And an important part of that, and I'll jump now to this one, is the open source idea. Open source and code first. Why open source? Well, open source allows for speed, for innovation, and on the other hand, also for long-term availability. It allows us to collaborate in the industry without any troubles and without and with being consistent with antitrust regulations, right? Open source software can and will be also applied in safety relevant parts, and we will see an example soon. And it allows also, as being open source, it allows also research being done and fast prototype being done, and this pays again into this innovation part from university and research institutes, which can now directly work in the software in a vehicle. An important part of allowing that is to abstract the hardware from the software. So this is one of the first steps which need to be done, and this is actually a project which has already started implementing that. And it needs to come to some joint and common view of the technology. So a joint language, so to say. So we have a glossary which explains the terms, which explains topics. We have some common collection of how to describe these building blocks, the software components which need to be done, and we have some ways developed which create this common structure for the software, this common architecture of the software, and also the use cases. And you can find that of course, publicly available on this GitHub. And this GitHub is something which is growing, a living thing, which forms also the base for this collaboration work. I believe this is worth another webinar, so we will come to this GitHub in some of the next webinars. Right. And of course, we want and do collaborate with what's already existing. And here we, of course, want to avoid this reinventing the wheel and really have this collaboration across everyone already active in the SDV area. This is a roadmap which shows, again, a little more technical what is intended. On the very left side, you see two different software stacks, the one from the purple OEM and the one from the violet OEM. And this stack is again composed of hardware, middleware, and application. And with more and more software components becoming available in this open source ecosystem, OEMs can and already do pick it up and integrate it and use it. And most likely they will have to do some additional, glue coding and integration work to get it in their specific stack working. And the same probably needs to be done by this purple violet OEM, probably picking same or some other components and making it work into its own stack. Now the next step, and the good thing is we are already approaching this next step, is we have enough components on building blocks available in the open source world, which can now form a first stack, a first complete stack in the car. And as a matter of fact, we are approaching that, and we have the very first candidate for this stack, and this is the SCORE project, the SCORE project from Eclipse SDV. And we are going towards this, because if this is available, and if this is mature enough, and if this is in the next step being certified and made available in automotive grade, then this is something which the OEM can directly use and directly build upon without the need of additional integration overhead and integrate glue code. And this is now the ultimate vision, frees up the resources to focus on this upper part, right, on these layers. And this is where the real differentiating features will appear. So that's the vision of the European SDV-OF initiative. Okay, so looking at the time, let's go to the roadmap. The roadmap shows from 2024 to 2030 how this is being developed, how this is being supported through research and innovation activities in the EC. Don't go too much into detail. You see a lot of these parts from in olive color from the CHIPS-GEO, in the CHIPS-GEO funding scheme. The one which has already started and is already working since a year, something like a year, is the HAL for SDV project, started 2024 and does exactly that. The HAL part, the hardware abstraction layer, which has been identified as being the first step. The next step will be the first building blocks to go into the middleware, which is about to start by mid this year. And there's also a next step already in the planning. You see this asterisk, meaning it's not yet published, this call, but this is what the roadmap plans for. And you see also a very good collaboration with other research frameworks like the CCAM framework, the Connected Collaborative Automated Mobility framework, as well as the 2.0 framework. If you zoom a little bit out, so this is the SDV part we have just touched upon. This is in a good alignment with the hardware initiative, the RISC-V initiative, and they have similar roadmap, which we will not go too much into detail in this presentation. This is also in alignment with what exactly the CCAM and the 2.0 communities plan. Also, there's a lot of projects planned for next year. Two of the 2.0 projects have just been started and are in a very good alignment with the SDV-OF. And there is, of course, these other initiatives going on, most importantly, probably to mention the Eclipse SDV world, where a lot of these open source projects are being hosted and being run. This core project we've mentioned previously, but of course also Cuvesa, which is busy in the open source world for automotive components for a long time, Sophie and AutoSAR being a big standard in the automotive world and also moving into this OSS projects territory. Okay, as it's already really late, let's briefly recap what is FEDERATE CSA. So the CSA is a coordination and support action which has been called upon and funded by CHIPS-JU. It's a project which I have the honor to be in the coordination team and which has started in October last year, well, 1.5 years ago. And the idea is really to support this, what we have just mentioned, to coordinate these activities and to create this vibrant SDV community and ecosystem which is required to make those things a reality, right? In parallel, we work on and we support this alignment on a technical basis, the technical understanding. Let me again mention this GitHub where you can find a lot of information which was produced in the last few months. And of course, we support directly those projects which on the roadmap, which do this implementation work. Finally, how can you connect to that? And most importantly, there is already a very big ecosystem available, as you can see, across Europe. But we are open and very interested to grow that. And therefore, how can we do that? How can you do that? This is the different parts where I can go. So starting from the outside, what we call friends of the SDV, this is something where you can register for on this website. So with this address, it will come a little bit later again. This is where you can register and get linked into these efforts. You get information about the events, the activities, where to find stuff, something like that. Newsletter, of course. Then we believe the next level will be just to use the outcomes, the results, the software components, right? So the users of those BB stands for building blocks. The next step is we very much hope that you would consider becoming contributors, so really developing software in this ecosystem. And this goes then towards also participating more and more into the design workshops in more and more technical and architecture working groups. And of course, everything is guided by some strategic governance from a steering group. Right. So finally, how to connect in terms of where to find more. Well, first of all, this FEDERATE website I've mentioned is federate-sdv.eu. Go there and you will find not only this vision paper, which we have just presented, but also a button where you can link up to get informed and a lot of other stuff, news, and all of these documents and also technical documents, which are published as a public document. You can download all the information freely there. You will find, of course, a LinkedIn channel, and this is the one channel which will provide you with very up-to-date information, specifically about events coming. And finally, what would be best if you can join us in person in face-to-face meetings like the FEDERATE networking events. Here you see a picture of the one which we had end of last year in Vienna. It's a whole day event where we do, well, we have a lot of discussions, workshops, presentations on both on higher level and a more detailed level, but also important point is to network and to build this community. The next one is going to happen on Tuesday, May 20th, and it's going to happen in Munich. So to stay informed, please visit our website or join the LinkedIn channel. Yes, and that is it. Thank you very much. And with that, I hand over to Benjamin to check if there are any questions.
There are indeed, but first of all, thank you, Peter, for this great presentation. And I think, as you pointed out, quite a number of topics that will merit their own webinar in the future. But thank you for the overview today. Yeah, to jump into the questions, there is one concerning whether the SDV-OF initiative is hard linked to the RISC-V architecture, or whether there will be an effort to also support ARM architectures in particular, as the majority of current SoCs and MCUs are based on ARM architecture from several vendors. And before you answer, there's also a comment on that already saying that the SDV-OF initiative should by default be independent of any dedicated hardware architecture. And yeah, maybe you can say more.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. So as mentioned before, a very important part is to have this abstraction layer between hardware and software to make it, from that point of view, independent of the hardware. And this is why the first project was dedicated to that, right? So the Alpha SDV project is implementing exactly that, to have this hypervisor architecture, for example, and to support that. This is for many reasons, and some of it is that for certain there are independent development cycles and development speeds on those different parts. Nevertheless, we do have also a very good collaboration with this hardware initiative of the EC, which is mostly focused on RISC-V, but not only. But we also have the ARM producing partners in this ecosystem. And the idea is here that coming from a software-defined vehicle initiative, we think we can provide to the hardware colleagues an idea of what we anticipate which comes to be next, which hardware capabilities are required, which capabilities are required, especially towards the IA, artificial intelligence domain, and to have this strong collaboration to make them aware and to align with them on what we believe is needed on the next step. So this is done with the hardware initiative, but not just with the RISC-V, but also with other architectures.
Yes, thank you. That should answer the question. There's a request to show again slide 25 without a question being connected to it directly, but maybe you could just show the stakeholders again there, Peter.
Okay, now let me see what was slide 25.
With the stakeholders.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah, yes. This one. If there's a connected question, please put that in the chat now. Otherwise, I can jump to another one for the moment that came in earlier. Question or request to share the presentation. You can find the presentation and the recording of today's webinar on the FEDERATE website within a couple of days. And also, if you missed the first webinar, be sure to check that out on the website. But that person also asked whether the FEDERATE project is addressing incorporation and alignment on the global level in order to provide proper SDV layer architecture and software coding standardization. And also, are the OEMs involved in the project implementing the results directly into their standards and supply chain?
Right. So let me maybe answer the first question first. So this is an initiative which is driven by the European Commission and by the European industry, but it is open source by definition, and this is public by definition. So we believe that this is something necessary for Europe, but the whole world is free to follow and to join. So yes, it's a European driven, but potentially useful for the whole world. And we believe that if we have some common idea, common standards, that will help us all in the SDV vision. That's the first step, right? The second step, the second question is, will the OEMs implement it? Well, as you can see, the OEMs are very much involved in this, right? So on the left side, this group number 2, you see the OEMs, which are already active, not just running, but really active. And it's, yes, so definitely there's a big push from the OEMs to come with tangible results with software components they can really use. And together with the tiers, the idea is that they will now not only use, but also drive and contribute to this billing in order to come up with the results they need to integrate.
Yes, also very important. Okay, that already brings us to the end of the time for today's webinar. So unfortunately, there was one or the other question, but I think we will have to pick that up in a follow-up webinar. I see that there's interest to talk more specifically or look more specifically at safety and cybersecurity. I think, yeah, that's a topic anyway that's
a good
very present. But I think that we can pick up in one of the future webinars. And also a request to get in contact with Alpha SDV. There are close links between the FEDERATE project and Alpha SDV. So I think we can pass that on. I see you shared your email address, so we'll take care of that after this webinar.
Let me maybe mention that on this FEDERATE website, there is one part with STV ecosystem, and here you find links to the linked projects. So here you can find link, for example, if you want to go to Half STV, you will find it here.
Yes, and otherwise, also get in touch with us. You can find the contact details on the website. You can sign up for the newsletter. Make sure also to check out when the next events and webinars will take place via the website. But for now and today, we're already a bit over time, so I'd like to thank again Peter for your presentation, everyone for joining and for your questions, and I hope very much that we will see you in one of the next virtual events, or also hopefully on the on-site networking events that we are organizing and offering. So thanks everyone, have a nice day, and talk soon.
Thank you, goodbye.
Bye.